Hi, I'm John. Thank you for watching my video. Today I'd like to introduce you to Archimatix. It's a node-based parametric modeling system for Unity. What is that? I'm used to modeling in Maya or 3D Studio Max, where you create models out of polygons. So you change vertices, edges, and faces to get the shape of the model that you want. This modeling system is more like Houdini or Modo, where everything is made up of shapes or curves which are combined in various ways, perhaps using Boolean functions or extrusion, lathing to create your models. Let's take a look at the Archimatix website. I want to let you know that I'm not affiliated with Archimatix. I don't work for them. I have no benefit from this product except for the fact that I think it's cool and useful and I want to introduce you to it. If we scroll down, we can see various shapes and models created in Archimatix. A lot of them show some curvature or repetition. There's architecture, and there's also stuff that looks science fiction, sort of like spaceships or alien architecture. So how can this be useful to us in Unity? I'm going to open Unity. I have an empty scene here where I have already imported the Arkhamatics plugin. In my assets, I will show that to you. Remove my camera. There you go. You can see the project window. In my assets, there is the Arkhamatics folder, which contains all the necessary things I need to use Arkhamatics. Under the window menu, you will also find an Arkhamatics menu. You have three items here: About, Library, and Graph Editor. About shows you links to various useful places such as the user guide, tutorial videos, documentation, support forum, and so on. The library shows you some pre-made models which are available for you to use. You can certainly add your own as you make them. This is the 3D section. If you switch to 2D, there is a library of shapes which you can also use to create your models. And you can certainly add your own again, and you can combine them with Boolean operations such as subtraction, addition, or intersection. I'm going to dock my library down next to my console window and switch it to the 3D view. And let's open up an asset. Let's start with a simple one like the stairs. When you open an asset, it automatically brings in this little robot. They call him Kyle. You don't need him. You can delete him. They just put him in for sense of scale. So I'll delete the Kyle. He comes back every time you open up a new asset, so you have to keep deleting him, but that's okay. If you click on the stair, you can adjust its properties parametrically by dragging these handles. For example, this green handle, I can change the width of the stair, and it doesn't stretch the texture, it tiles it instead, so it's all parametric. I can drag another handle to change the number of steps, or perhaps the base of it, or change the height of the steps, or length of the run. So that's what it means to be parametric. You see the shape, the cross-section of the stairs in a pink curve. That's what is the base shape, and then it's extruded to give you the depth of the stairs. So that's how this shape is made. In the inspector, you will see all of the pieces that make up the shape. So the stair shape over here has parameters such as riser, tread, steps, height, run, and floor, and you can punch in the number here. Right now my stairs are 3.97 meters long. If I want to make it 5, I can put in 5 over here. If I wanted them to be higher, maybe 3 meters, I can change that here too. Or you can do it by dragging the handles interactively. You don't have to have the same material. You can choose any material from the library. Right now it's plywood. Let's change it to something else, perhaps another concrete. Or you can bring in your own materials. You can make your own materials. This is just a small library that comes in with the software. And of course, it also adjusts to your scene when you drag it onto your model. Let's take a closer look at the hierarchy. The model itself, the parametric model, is going to be under a parent called AX Model 1. If you expand that, there are a few items in there. The runtime handles, the thumbnail camera, and the thumbnail light. You don't need to worry about them. They're just created to show you a thumbnail of the model. The model itself is under this subfolder called Generated Game Objects. So if you expand that, you see the basics there. If I click on that, it automatically jumps me back up to the AX Model 1, which is the parametric control for the model, where I can change its shape. But if I want to create this model as a non-parametric version, you can do that by creating stamp of it. When you have the model selected, down below in the window you will see the different buttons. One of them is called stamp. If I click the stamp, I have just created a stamp of the model, which now is no longer parametric. I can move it to the side, so it's a copy, but it's a now polygonal version of the model. My other model is still parametric, and I can still adjust many things on it. So for example, for this one, I'm going to make it thinner, I'm going to make it lower, and you can see I made the stairs more curved as well. And I want to change the material on this one to, say, the corrugated metal. And now I like this one as well, so I'll stamp that. And you can see in my hierarchy now there's another stamp model, and I would recommend renaming them after you're done with them, but I'm not going to use these in my scene, so I'll just leave them be. When you're done creating your models, typically you would keep the stamps and you would just delete the parametric model, and then you could make prefabs out of the stamped versions or place them in your scene as you like. Let's delete them and move on to a more complicated model. I will use one called chair. It's a type of chair. And again we get the robot, but you can unclick Kyle down here. They call him Kyle. He's sort of a company mascot. And then he won't be visible in your scene. I think they just use him for scale. So these models that I have, and I have two of them now. One is an instance, so I can just delete that instance. Oops, there goes my model. I will bring it in again from the library since we haven't done anything with them yet. So this is a chair. Let's make one stamp of it as it is, and I will move the stamp to the side. And now let's use the second chair to make a different version of it. Okay, so this one's gonna be more like a bench, and maybe I want this lower, and I will pull these poles also lower. So this is gonna be a bench. I'll stamp that. I'll move my stamp to the side, and then let's make something like a bed. So it will be longer and not so wide, and I want the headboard to be taller and higher up, and I want these to be lower, these sides, and I don't want these holes to protrude through from there. So you can quickly adjust the model to your liking. And then maybe for this part I want, instead of black leather, I want, I don't know, that plywood material. Maybe you haven't put the mattress on yet, so it's just wood. So now I'm happy with that model. and I can stamp that and move that aside. And when you're done with your models, you can create the parametric you can delete the parametric model, and what you're left with are the non-parametric or polygonal models that you have created from the basic shape. Let's take a look at another model. This time I'll bring in some sort of building. I don't know, maybe this one might be nice. I'm gonna move my camera out of the way so you can see an external view of the building. So here's my camera. Move that out and up and maybe to the side, and rotate my camera a little bit. Alright, well, this is a view of the building. So now we can adjust the building. Let's make one copy of this model as it is. It's called Villa Romano, so I'll stamp one version and then I'll move my stamp to the side. Say you want to populate your city with various versions of similar looking buildings. This other version is still parametric, so I can perhaps grab the stairs. I want the staircase to be out here, and I want this part to be thicker here and protrude this way. Well, maybe that's too far, so I'll grab this part. We want a little bit of a balcony there. I'll take this part and move that out. So you can create different versions of your buildings and stamp copies of them, so quickly you can populate your city with something similar. And then you would delete the parametric model and just keep the poly models in your scene. Let's delete these and take a look at something else. There's something interesting which is sort of like a castle in the library. Let's see, here it is. Right now it's just kind of painted with a blue grid, but you can change that material. So this one is a shape which uses something called a repeater. The repeater is something that allows you to repeat some shapes along a curve, for example, or in an array. So here each tower is repeated, and you can add additional towers. Like I just create one, I just grab one somewhere in the middle of a wall and I pull and I create a new one. And when they intersect, they do that in a Boolean way, so they add to each other. You can move them, you can see they're parametric because I'm moving them all together, and they're also tied to this curve, this wall shape. You can change many parameters on this. Well, this is just one example of a complex curve that you can create that has properties such as, you know, the towers are bound to the walls, and they intersect with each other in a specific way that you have decided. And you can create your own rules to determine the behavior of the model. Let's add a different kind of tower. This one is a lathed tower, which means it is rotated in 360 degrees to create the shape. If I click on the tower itself, you can see a cross-section of the curve, which I can scale and I can modify in various ways by dragging control points. I can add points to it if I wanted to bulge out here, for example, or change the cross-section in some way. The top of it is also a shape, the onion shape, which I can also modify to make it taller or wider as you like. So again, this shape adheres to a set of rules which we will take a quick look at in the node editor. Right now, let's take a look at yet another model. This one is basically a building with just the floors and the staircases, but without the outer facade. So if you take a closer look at it, this building also uses a repeater, which governs the height, the number of floors that you have. If I drag it taller, it adjusts the number of floors to match predetermined um, behavior. Also, the stairs will match the height. So um, I will select the building. I accidentally created two versions of it, an instance. So, but that's okay. We can delete one of them. But as you can see, by the way, instances all behave the same. So if you wanted to have two of the same kind uh, and modify them later, you can create them as instances, or you can stamp a version of it, and then the stamp will be its separate model. Oops, I created 4 versions now, but oh well. We're starting to populate a city. So these stamped are just copies. They are no longer parametric. This is now polygonal models, which you can adjust. Like, it's made up of different parts. Like, each floor is a separate object, and you can delete it. It's not gonna affect anything else. You can bring it into Maya or 3D Studio Max and modify it if you like. So what do you do with the models now? So you create variations that you want to change, and Arkhamatics will allow you to create similar objects, but you don't have as much control over specifics of it. So for example, if you wanted to change the materials and paint them in Substance Painter, or you wanted to change the geometry on a vertex basis, you could bring this to Maya, my favorite application for polymodeling. And the way to do that is you need another plugin. So let's create a model. So I don't know, a rickety staircase. So this is my model, which is parametric. If I stamp it, I will create a clone of it, which is polygonal. And now I can delete my parametric model and say I want my scene, my staircase, to be brought into Maya. So you need a plugin called Export to Maya, and so you can go to the asset store, and I already have that plugin, so I will filter based on Export to Maya. Here we go, Export to Maya. So I'll import it in my scene, and it's done. And then I would select my object. Actually, Export to Maya, I can export the entire scene, and you can see in my project window now I have the Export to Maya folder, and I believe under window you will now have Export to Maya, and it will ask you what you're exporting, which Maya version, and what are your units. And basically it will create a Maya scene which has this model as a polygonal model, which you can then paint or modify to your liking. So in this way you can choose to model both in a parametric way and a polygonal way to create your scene quickly. If you are going to have variation of a model, it's useful to make it in a parametric modeler such as Houdini or Archimatix. And then if you want to have full control over every vertex and every piece of it, then you can bring it to Maya or 3D Studio Max and fix it there to your liking. This was a kind of a long introduction to Archimatix. I'm planning to do some more videos which deal with the features, and I haven't shown you the node-based editor yet, so we will take a look at that in close detail. Basically it shows you the hierarchy or basically how the model, the parametric model, is created from shapes. It's a little bit complicated, but after you take a close look at it, it's not that bad. So I hope you enjoyed this introduction, and I hope that you will watch other videos on this topic and other topics as well. Thank you.